Hey, everybody. We're so glad to have you here today on Friday with Fran. I'm your host, Shelly Kino, and this is my friend Fran. And every Friday, we get together and we just chat about things that are related to special education. The experience that we both bring to this conversation is that I'm a former special education teacher with over 2 decades of experience. And Fran is a parent of two children who are now grown ups as far as chronological age is considered. And she obviously has been doing this then for at least 18 years, a few more years than that. So today we're going to talk about, hi, Alex. We're going to talk about transitions, which we talked about last week. And that carries over into what we're going to talk about today. Today, our focus is going to be holidays and behaviors. And I sort of decided that without really discussing it with Fran. And so when when I posted that that's what we were going to discuss, she went, "Oh, okay. Are we going to talk about at home or at school?" And I said, "Yes." So, so we just wanted to bring some of our ideas. My intention with this is that there are going to be school behaviors, and those could escalate depending on how well they're handled or how severe something is affecting the child. But then those are going to transition sometimes over to home and then going back to school after a holiday and transitioning back to school. So you can have behaviors the front, the middle, and the end. And because we're on the holiday season. Many people count the October 31st through the end of the year as holiday season, and it's October 30th. So it seemed like a very appropriate time to talk about those things. So, Fran,
Oh,
you
and
and
apparently, if you follow along with what many people do, um, the day that's going to happen, yeah, it's a full moon too.
I've heard that,
Yeah,
and
something.
that also that's a good point. Um, I'm going to let you explain why you brought that up. Why do you think that was important to tell us?
Well, okay, so I don't know if it's wives' tales, if there's any scientific evidence, but many people attribute behaviors to the full moon
Mm-hmm.
and changes in atmospheric pressure and I don't know. I know that in the field in which I've worked, people can be acting out. You're like, man, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And um, someone go, it's a full moon. You're like, nah. And you look again, and you're like, oh, and I don't know, but it lines up. So I'm not saying it's true or not, but that's what happens.
Well, and I can tell you from my experience, I mean, you've had experience with places that you've worked as well, but your children also. Um, I didn't necessarily believe it either, that had any effect on it until I started working with kids. And yeah, I mean, you could have kids that were normally pretty well behaved and pretty focused and being able to be, paying attention to what needed to be paid attention to. And then there'd just be this day. It's like nothing seems to go
Mm-hmm.
right. The kids are all over the place. They're struggling. And then, yeah, I would find out, oh, it was a full moon last night, or oh, it's a full moon tonight, or oh, snow is coming, or some sort of, like you said, atmospheric pressure, some sort of big change in the weather is going to
Yeah.
happen. And so those are the kinds of things that we want to talk about. If you are with us today, I would love for you to just type in hello, or if you've ever seen these things, or if you've not witnessed these things before. And also, if you are with us, if you would tell us what state you're from. We've had a few people from different states other than the one that she and I both live in. So I'm curious to know where our listeners or followers, whatever you want to call yourselves, are from. Um, so, weather is not something that we have any control over, but we can help our children deal with the weather and how their body is reacting to that. So,
Right.
Fran, have you had experiences with that with your children? And I apologize if my phone's been going off. I don't know if they have the volume off. Okay.
Um, well, actually, it's just this recent weather change right now, where we went from summer to very, very cold and kind of missed the fall.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my daughter did not transition this well at all. Where we've missed quite a few days of school because that transition hasn't happened yet.
Right.
And I wasn't prepared for it, and she wasn't prepared for it. So we're trying to play catch up,
So,
because
when you say
when
you
it's cold,
prepared,
she doesn't like to get up.
okay.
And so for her, preparing her ahead of time, okay, you need to have more clothes out. You need to be dressed warmer in the night. We need to get we keep all of everything downstairs. Um, we my house is small, so summer stuff we just transition stuff up and down. I keep it in vacuum seal bags. So we just haven't really transitioned because it was really warm. Remember, we had like that
Yeah.
record breaking day. I think just the other time we were talking.
Yeah.
So I wasn't ready to transition things over. And for me, I'm okay with it cold. However, she's not, and I have to be aware of that. And I did. So we missed the ball on that one. We dropped dropped the ball on that one.
So when that sort of thing happens, because it always does, I mean, life is not perfect. We cannot plan everything perfectly. And even if I take that back, we can plan, but then sometimes the plan is going to change to no control of our own abilities. So how was it, or when was it that you noticed that your daughter was having difficulty, and then it sort of clicked with you that, oh, it's probably because of the weather change?
Um, the other morning when she was burrowed under her covers, it was like, I'm not getting up. I'm like, why? You have to go. I'm cold. And then it became, there were many what appeared to be unreasonable demands. Bring me water, bring me this, bring it. And I was in a hurry, so I was not catching those, that these were her, I don't want to get out of the covers. And if I may have actually done that, we might have gotten to school that day. But so
Yeah.
I missed her cues.
Right. And
So
so did you catch yourself getting upset with her because
yes,
she wasn't?
I did. I got very upset. And uh, and I ended up, and I had to be somewhere, and so that was part of the problem. Was I also had an agenda, that a schedule to which I had to stick. There was no flexibility. So I ended up having to send her a text apologizing, after I'd already sent a note to school and done all of those things. Sorry, my cat's tail is everywhere. And when we got home, we did talk about it. And okay, so I'm like a really frugal person in some areas, and that includes heat. So I hadn't turned the heat on. And apparently, you're supposed to turn the heat on. It's like, it's not mandatory, but it's a nice thing to do. It's the
Yeah.
socially expected thing to do, perhaps. So since then, I have turned the heat on, and she has a heater as well. So that helps a little bit. So she is going to school better now. And I know that I have to go, okay, she's going to make unreasonable demands till she adjusts. So I have to
And
be flexible.
and I'm so proud of you for acknowledging. There were several things that you said in there that you had your own schedule. And so therefore, because you were focused a little bit more inward because of what you had to do, and that, I'm not saying that's wrong, I'm saying that's perfectly fine. You weren't as aware that there was something going on with her. Secondly, because you had your own schedule, your tolerance level
It was
for
non-existent.
for understanding and that sort of stuff was non-existent at that point. So you went through it, and you had, probably not your best choice of words and phrases at that time, but you recognized that, and you apologized later for that, this, I just didn't see it all. And that to me is so key, because relationships and having a good relationship between, whether it's your child and you, or if it's a student and yourself as the teacher, um, you have to be able to admit that you make mistakes, and you have to be able to, you don't have to be able to, but you're going to go a whole lot further with that relationship if you admit, I messed up and these are the reasons why, or don't even tell the reasons why, and just say, I'm sorry, I messed up, please forgive me, I'm going to try to do better the next time. But also, hopefully, which I don't think you said this, maybe you did and I just missed it, that you could also talk with her about, okay, if you could have said to me, I'm really cold, I don't like to be up when it's cold, and had more of a reaction from her, as opposed to just, give me water, get me this, get me that, which maybe she didn't understand that was because she was cold and that was just her way of dealing with it. But, going
She
back,
reads your mind and doesn't understand. She still believes that a grunt communicates, or that I know what she wants.
Mhm.
And so we're still working on, well, that's why we use our words.
Right. And going back after something, after an event like that has happened, and going over things, and you could say to her, okay, if asking me for water or growling at me or grunting at me didn't tell me exactly how you were feeling, and if we can get you to tell me exactly how you're feeling, then we can work with that, and we can address that, and we can move on. So those are the kinds of things that so often I feel as parents, and as teachers, that we miss out on. We'll catch the behaviors, especially the unwanted behaviors, and maybe we discipline them, or maybe we don't. We get frustrated, but oftentimes we forget that once that behavior has passed, to go back and do that, what's called therapeutic rapport, through, and I get those words through the Crisis Prevention Institute, or Crisis Prevention Intervention, because that therapeutic rapport is going to continue to build and maintain a good relationship between you and the other person. But oftentimes it's just, okay, well, they've had their behavior, I've dealt with it, and then we don't talk about it anymore. So what other is there anything else you want to say about that? I kind of was going to jump on, but we have a comment here. Excuse me, I don't know what's going on with my voice today. So Alex says, yes, weather changes affect me greatly along with the moon phases. We are having a big weather change today, and I'm definitely feeling it, both physically and emotionally, not ready for it.
Wow.
So yeah, personally for me, I like going from hot to cold. I don't like going the other way. But I mean, that's, again, it's an individual perspective.
You can always bundle. For me, my theory is you can bundle. Well, at least here in America, you're not allowed to strip. So,
right.
It's
it is against the law. Yeah.
I struggle with that sometimes.
Well, on those days when it gets really, really hot, it's like, okay, don't go outside. Stay right in front of the air conditioner vent or the fan. Don't
but I
move.
had my formative years in Germany, so.
Well, yeah, there you go. Yeah, Europe especially is much more open about that kind of thing than we are here in the United States. So, do you have any other examples, or do you want?
Well, yeah, I think Alex just said I like the cold better. It just snuck up on me.
Yeah. And it does that. I mean, again, depending on which part of the country you live in, you can. I mean, here in the Midwest, we can have all 4 seasons in one day. So
yeah.
And she's up in New York, she said. So probably is similar up there, that they have. They can have multiple seasons in one day, if not all of them.
Oh, give me 1 second.
Okay. So for those that are joining us today again. If you would just put into the chat where you're from, and we're talking about transitions from regarding behaviors and either going to school or coming home from school and then having a holiday like Thanksgiving or Christmas or Halloween even. It's the day before Halloween that this is broadcasting, and our kids are already struggling with a lot of different things right now because of some school districts have passed the first quarter mark, and their eligibility in their area as far as pandemic response has gone to a level where they can offer more in-person services. And so kids are going from, okay, I got to be home, I didn't have to wear a mask. I might have gotten to stay in my pajamas all day. I might have gotten to stay in my bed all day, to, oh, well, now I'm going to go back to school. And maybe some places are going 2 days a week. Some places are going 3. Some places are going all 5. And some of the ones that are going all 5 are going all day, as like what it had been before this pandemic hit. Some places are just half days. Some places are 2/3 or 3/4 of the day. So there's a lot of change happening. And these students have very little, if any, control over all these things are happening to them. Parents oftentimes are the ones making the decisions about whether their kids are going to go in person or continue remote, or they're going to do that hybrid version. School administration is making these decisions to make these options. So all of these things are happening all across the country. And whatever we can do to help the child feel some control, even something as simple as, do you want to wear a coat or not? Sometimes they have to understand if they don't want to wear a coat, they might be cold later in the day, but we have to give them that opportunity to have some say in some things that will help them feel a little more centered and a little bit of, oh, okay, well, there is at least that one thing I can control. I can't control that, it's Halloween, it's a full moon, it's cold outside. I have no control out of any of that, but at least I got to decide if I wanted to wear my coat or not wear my coat. Or trick-or-treating or not trick-or-treating, same thing. A lot of places around the area that we're in, some are doing trick-or-treating, some are not. Again, these are not decisions that the kids are having any part in making. So especially for younger kids who have been trick-or-treating and they know, hey, Halloween's coming, I'm going to go trick-or-treating, and suddenly they don't get to. What do we do for them? What would you suggest, Fran?
Well, be honest and transparent. Well, much like everything else right now, things have changed. This is a different time. So we don't have trick-or-treating. So what can we do instead? What would you like to do to make this something special that you're going to remember? Or what can, find some options and say, okay, these are the options we have. Which one would you like to pick?
And make sure, sorry to interrupt you, the options, make sure that the options, no matter which one they choose, that you're okay with them choosing.
Right.
Because if you give them the choice and they choose something and then you're like, well, no, you can't do that, then that was no better than, that was actually worse. Than if
because they didn't know it existed. You
right.
let them know about it, and then you were like, oh yeah, but no, you can't have it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So definitely, that was actually one of the things I had even written down just in general is, and we talked about this some, next week when we were talking about transitions, and we talked about some people you let know way ahead of time, and some you just let know in the moment. Mm-hmm. And the ones you need to know way ahead of time, you might be a little behind the ball for Halloween, but you can plan for the other holidays coming up.
Right.
But the ones that you can't let know, you're good. You have time.
Right.
But I always say schedule, have the schedule, a relative schedule planned. If you know you're going away for the holidays, let's say for Thanksgiving, and you know you're going, then okay, let's go with the ones that need the planning ahead of time. Let them know now. Say, hey, just a heads up, we're going. Maybe think about, these are some of the choices there. Could you let me know maybe what you want to do while we're there? Or it's going to be a long drive, so start thinking about what you want to pack.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's going to happen. We can't be going out like we used to, so we're going to have to be doing these things. So these are some of your options. Start thinking on them. And I know this sounds maybe like we're talking too much for younger children, but even younger children that are planners benefit from this. This is where the calendar comes in handy, where you mark it on your calendar and they can mark it off every night prior to going to bed. This is where I was. This is that kind of thing. So for me, I think it's a matter of at least having a general plan.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And if your kids, like you mentioned, we're, thinking about younger children, if they're in school, whether virtual or in person, they start talking about these holidays now that they're coming up. They start doing things,
Mm-hmm.
especially, and I don't know how this is working this year, but in previous years, they start planning for Christmas programs now. So they're talking about Christmas and the fact that, and kids, they sing Christmas songs for 2 months or sometimes 3, depending on how often the music teacher sees them. I can remember one school district that I was in, and the music teacher only saw each grade level once a week. So she had to start planning in October or early October what the songs were and have the kids start practicing them so that they would have enough time to learn the words to the songs. And then if there were movements to them or any other things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, if the kids are in person, it's already being talked about. So for
Right.
you to talk about it more at home helps them, especially like you said, the ones who are planners, because usually, especially Christmas, is being started talking about so soon, so early to when it really happens.
Mm-hmm.
That if you have somebody who's super excited about Christmas, they're going to be on you all the time. So yeah, developing a calendar
Mm-hmm.
would be very helpful.
And I mean, even the stores are, they're already
Mm-hmm.
decorating. So
Right.
it's not like you can, unless you're self-isolating and you're not, you're, I don't even know how you would,
Right.
but
If you're not watching television, because
it's
there's
not
television shows
allowing your
on.
child to see that part of if they're doing remote learning. But it's out there. So
Right.
I guess maybe, so since we've both determined it's out there, this coming up with the strategies that work for your child to navigate through that. I was just looking, I just jotted a couple of notes. One of the biggest things I think is letting them know your expectations ahead of time.
Absolutely.
And I think that goes for, I'm going back. I know this is kind of going back a little bit, but going back to my example of my daughter in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So we had our a few rough mornings, through rough days, and it took me some time to really figure out how to even communicate it. And then I had to communicate with her my expectations. And if she chose not to do what to go to school, get out from under the covers, then these were the consequences. So once I had established that, I was okay following through on those consequences because I know I had communicated them to her. Prior to that, I was struggling a little bit with, well, yeah, I'm going to take away the electronics, but had I communicated that to her? And I could honestly, I was like, I'm pretty sure I did, but did I communicate it for this instance? For
Right.
her, everything has to be very specific to that instance.
Right.
So I've learned, actually, we used to write contracts, And one of the things we would write into the contract, you have to be flexible. This is not everything that could occur.
Right.
And she would want to sign it because they would have that in it. But I had to put it in there because otherwise, if it wasn't covered, then she felt free reign.
Right, exactly.
So that knowing the expectation, I think I know personally, if I know what someone's expecting of me prior to going somewhere, I do a lot better. My anxiousness of in a new setting or something is so much less because I know, oh, okay, this is all they need of me while I'm here, so I'm okay.
Right.
I can do that. It's within my abilities.
Right. And
So that
is
helps put it aside.
Yeah. And that's another excellent point, that oftentimes kids don't know what we expect. We then tell them because they haven't met that expectation that we never expressed to them in the first place. So we tell them what we don't want them to do. You need to get out of bed, or, you need to, that's actually what we want them to do. Get out from under, no. See, I can't even do it. I'm so used to putting things in the way that I want them that it's hard for me to come up with, you can't stay under the covers all day. Maybe that's how you worded it. I don't know. But the better way to word it would have been, you need to get out of bed. You need to get out from under the covers, and give them the expectation of what you need or want them to do at the time. And we talked about, I don't remember if it was the last time or before, but you have to be careful with blind obedience to directions.
Yes.
So it is important for them to understand why something is done the way it's done sometimes. But there are other times when, it's like, okay, this is what we have to do. Oh, poor Cooper's cold too.
Right. He's clingy, or he was down there pawing.
I like his little sweater.
I crocheted this one because I couldn't find his sweaters, but I have found his sweaters since then.
Well, that's anyway. Good. Yeah, Jonas, I wonder if that's some of his issues lately. Is it that he's cold and he doesn't like to wear like the coats and things that we found for him. So it could be just because they're not the right size, or it's just odd to have it on. But yeah, so making sure, you word things in the way that you want them to do it, and that you express the expectation ahead of time. And then we're all guilty. We've all, sometimes we don't even realize we have an expectation until the expectation isn't met. And so if that's happening, don't discipline the child that time. But as you said, okay, well, I told her that this was the philosophy for other things. Maybe I didn't express it clearly enough for this particular situation. Then once you've given that, then you can say, okay, well, now I've told you the expectation. You didn't meet that expectation. So now discipline is, writing your path is the next step.
Right.
So I think, you're doing fabulous as a parent, from my behavioral perspective.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that, because it's taken a bunch of a gazillion. It feels like calendars just to get where we are, and I know there's still a long way to go. The only other thing I wanted to really, there's a couple, but one of the things I'm thinking of is, okay, so we have a schedule when they're in school, or we try to have a schedule. And you're right. Kids are transitioning right now. They're having the choices to change from certain types of learning, maybe, or in their school district, or with different rates. Things are always changing. But keeping some type of schedule during the break. Or if you choose not to have any schedule, establishing it prior to returning, at least a couple
nights or days.
Yeah. Prior, saying, okay, well, yeah, we haven't been making you go to bed, or you've been able to have your electronics so long, or you've been able to eat whenever, but okay, now we're going to be heading back to school. So you're going to need to follow. You're going to need to, we're returning back to the school routine. So as of when you wake up in the morning, we're getting up at school time, even though school isn't starting. And
Right.
get that truly helps. It kind of stinks if you're really enjoying the sleeping in along
Right.
with your children or something, but it's so important not to skip that step.
It
That's
really
my
is,
belief.
because you are saving yourself from a lot of aggravation on that first day or even in that first week back to school after a long break, like a summer type break. Um, and I think about in summer, we used to start our daughter the beginning of August, slowly transitioning back to, okay, like you talked about, here's the bedtime that you're going to have, and you're going to have a bedtime, especially as she got older. Um, and, we'd cut it down like a little bit each week or a little bit every few days. Okay, you used to be going to bed at 11, and when school starts, you need to be in bed by 9:30. So, just dropping it down a few minutes each night or a few minutes every other day. Um, because it takes, especially with sleep, it takes our body's circadian rhythm that much time to get back into the flow of when we go back to sleep.
Sleep is overrated.
Says the person who rarely sleeps.
uh, that's true, Alex. Balance during the break and then the transition.
Yeah. I think one of these times I'm going to ask Alex to join us in person, because she always has such great thoughts for
Yeah,
us.
I was just thinking that
I wonder
earlier.
if she'd have them if she was on the spot like we are. So I'm going to ask you right now, Alex, would you be willing to join us sometime live?
Hey, I have a day I will not be able to be joined. Maybe you could do one with her on that day.
Oh, there we go. That could work. Oh, and speaking of that, oh wait, no, this is a Friday thing. Okay, I'm working the election, so come on. She said probably not, and then she's like, well, maybe.
Or is it probably not to coming up with the ideas on the spot, or the maybe join?
Yeah. So Alex, whether you join or you don't join, I very much, and I know Fran does too, appreciate you joining us this way, because you do help keep us balanced in what we're talking about because of your comments. So even if you couldn't join me or you weren't comfortable joining me, that would be perfectly okay. I do so very much appreciate what you contribute from afar. So, but yeah, the balance during the break as well as then the transition is having that balance. Understanding, I think, can kind of be interchangeable words at this point, because they're going to fight you when you start trying to transition back to, like I said, in the summertime especially. It's okay, on the weekends, Friday night or Thursday night, if there's no school Friday, to let them stay up a little bit later than typical. But definitely, if you let them stay up on Friday night, don't let them stay up as late on Saturday. And then if they try to take a nap on Sunday, don't let them take a nap.
Right.
And you have to have that balance of, okay, how many days off are there? How many days, can we kind of be flexible with the schedule? And occasionally, things happen, special events happen, and you don't get to do that. But if,
and you know what? Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, and if that happens, the other word I was just thinking of as you were saying that is patience.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually going to go. I'm looking on your page for something, but there's because I think you shared it the other day. But I think it's so important that we don't take how they are acting as personally as an attack on ourselves. It's just how they're trying to process and get through what's being asked of them, and they may not have the processing or the vocabulary or the ability to do it in any other way. at
Right.
that point.
Right. And
So
I had
it is up to us to remember, and I know personally, if I'm in the moment, sometimes it's very difficult
mhm,
to separate what is being thrown at me word wise or physically things. It's like, okay, this is not personal. This is not personal. Oh, it sure feels personal, but
absolutely. And especially, it's a little bit different, a little bit easier to separate when you're just a teacher and a student than it is when you're a parent and a child. Because that child means that much more to you than the student does to the teacher. And every teacher that I've ever worked with, and myself most definitely, we love our students and we consider our students our family and we care very deeply. But it's a different level when it's your child screaming at you, "I hate you." They don't really hate you. They don't like what's happening in the moment, and therefore that's what they hate, not you, the person. And it's difficult to stay calm. Again, it's easier to stay calm if that child is not your child, but you have to do your best to stay calm. And there are other slides that I have, or other, not slides, but other pictures um, that show where the rationality is when people are getting emotional. And so you don't want to have your irrationality escalating as the child's
yep,
irrationality is escalating, which is another reason to stay calm. Is that it?
I see.
Yeah, I
I'm not
think
sure
that's
if
it.
that's the one you're
That's
wanting.
part of it.
And the next
Um,
one right
yeah.
after.
So, and I don't know. Okay. Yeah. So I did
You
what
want
you
the other
said.
one?
Yeah. So if the child is in crisis mode,
Oops.
see, as they're getting under that line, their their ability to understand, their ability to be rational is getting less and less. And if you start having um, similar reactions to what they're doing, then your ability drops down below that rational line as well. So then you just have two irrational people. And it's not just children. This happens when you are talking with another person, no matter the age of that person. Um, the more emotional you get, the more irrational you become. So this is, yeah, validate the emotion. So this is kind of what a little bit about what we were talking about. The therapeutic rapport is on the far side. What this one is talking about is, I understand that you are frustrated right now because your body language is expressing to me that you are frustrated, or your tone of voice, or your words. Oftentimes, kids especially don't understand what is
Mm-hmm.
happening. Their body and their brain just start to express it for them, that something is off, something is uncomfortable. I've got to do something. And so I had written down, and you kind of went into it without me having to really say it, but what the behaviors look like. Um, they can be yelling at you. They can be any behavior that is not normal. And I mean whatever normal is for your person, your child, whether that's an adult child, or whether that's a colleague or a coworker, or whether it's a young child, whatever activity they're suddenly, or behavior they're suddenly showing you. Like if they start rocking a lot, something is probably bothering them. If they just want to be in their room all the time and they had been social butterflies prior to that, that's something you need to address. Or the opposite. If they had wanted to be, kind of, if they're introverts and they wanted to always be away, and then suddenly they're like very clingy. Um, if they're frustrated at all their schoolwork, and or they're starting to get annoyed with their friends, Or like I said, like we talked about, if they're screaming at you, if they're throwing things at you, behaviors can show all kinds of different
Our
show in all
communication.
kinds of different ways. What'd you say?
I said behaviors are communication.
Yes, absolutely. That's one of my big things, is that behaviors are communication, and it's just a matter of figuring out what is trying to be communicated. It could just be that they're hungry. I mean, those Snickers commercials were beautiful, because that really is, people get that way. They get hangry, to use their word,
Mm.
and they start acting strange, or their body doesn't have enough of whatever. It could be a vitamin, a nutrient, whatever it is, and so they have a headache. Maybe they don't know how to express to you that they have a headache. They just get really angry with you all of a sudden. So, and we think about, I can put it in adult terms. If you have a bad day at work, and this was prior pandemic, when you actually got to go to a place to go to work, and then you came home, oftentimes adults don't get mad at other adults that they work with, but they hold it in until they get home. And then they're very frustrated the first time that somebody didn't put their socks away, or whatever you're having for dinner is not what they want to have, or whatever. I mean, you say something and it's, and you're like, whoa, who let the beast out? What happened?
Mm-hmm.
It's because they're processing things that happened not with you, but you're the safe person that they're going to express.
Yeah.
Whatever
They're safe. Where I as you're describing that, it reminds me. I think it's probably we're talking about the same thing. Is goodness gracious.
Oh.
The the let's say it was the husband comes home and yells at the wife, who yells at the kid, who yells at the dog, who yells at the cat, who chases the mouse. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like it's a trickle effect.
Absolutely.
And so who's going to stop the trickle? The question is, who's going to just go, okay, well, yeah, that hurt me, but at this point, what can I do to reboot everybody?
Right. And it's not easy. And I'm probably not going to say the scripture exactly, and I know I don't know the book and the verse, but that a wise man remains calm and a fool stirs up folly. So when somebody says something negative to you, to respond negatively in return is not a good way to respond. If you can just go, okay, and just walk away, or just calmly say, I don't agree with you. I mean, there's lots of ways, and they're not foolproof. I mean, some people are, it's just not going to be a good thing, no matter how you respond. But more often than not, if you can control your reaction to what is said to you or done to you, the situation will de-escalate a lot quicker. Which goes back to that slide of validating that emotion.
May I share something?
Of course.
I'm thinking, even as, okay, so when I come home, a lot of times I'll have left things for my daughter to do, or sent her a text or called her. And when I come home, sometimes the first words out of my mouth are, so did you do the list? What did you get done? Instead of, hey, how was your day? How are you? Because I do it really well with people I encounter out and about, because I really tried to purpose to ask, whether it's the person checking me out or in the doctor's office, the receptionist, I've tried to purpose to say, how are you doing? Or say something nice about them. And it doesn't have to be major, just, oh, I really like your smile, just brightened my day. But I wasn't carrying that through at home. And I realized that a while back. I was like, the first words out of my mouth should not be to my daughter, "Oh, I could tell you didn't do the litter box." Even though walking in the door, I could tell she did. Instead, I should find something positive to say. And so, that's a work in progress for me. I know is um, making sure that she knows that I just appreciate her just because she is, not because of what she's done.
Yeah. And that is definitely something that I have worked on for years, um, because of working in the field that I worked in. And I've always been, since becoming a teacher and educator, fascinated with behaviors. And so anytime I had an opportunity to take workshops or classes, I would. And so I started to see that many years ago that, oh, yeah, my reaction to certain things. And, like those slides that you shared, those are from a professor at the University of Illinois in Chicago, Professor Van Acker. And I learned that from him probably 15 years ago. And it was so eye-opening to me that, oh, yeah, if we're both irrational, then neither of us are thinking clearly anymore. And neither of us are going to make sense of the situation. And it is only going to get worse. And we have to be careful when we're working with children specifically that if we need to um, have a discipline, that we don't try to take away everything all at once. And there's multiple reasons for that. Because first of all, the punishment needs to fit the crime, which is another one of my posts that I've shared. Because if all they've done, and I say all, but if what they've done is a minimal thing, and maybe it caused a minor inconvenience, you don't need to take every happy thing away from them because of that minor inconvenience. Now, if they did a major thing like stealing a car, you know, um, or taking your car, I should put it that way, then that does require a bigger consequence. But something I also want to throw in right here is that consequences are both positive and negative, and behaviors, no matter if they're positive behaviors or negative behaviors, are still communication. So you can probably read some behaviors or some of our communication during our broadcast because we laugh, we have fun. You can tell that we like each other. You can tell that these are important topics to us, that we've both had experience with them. You can look at Cooper right now and see, his behaviors as very comforting, very loving. For some reason, he needed to be near Fran right now, whether that was something he thought she needed or whether it was something that he needed. So none of what we're exhibiting right now are negative behaviors, but so often that's the only ones that we focus on having consequences. But positive behaviors should get positive consequences too. We all, those of us who work and are paid by other people other than our own businesses, that's our positive consequence for going to work every day and showing up and doing our job is we get a paycheck. So there's a positive consequence for a positive behavior. If your child, if you've expressed that expectation to them and they've met that expectation, a praise, good job. No, not even good job. That's really not, you really should say, I appreciate that you cleaned the litter box. You did a great job of cleaning the litter box. Being more specific with the praise.
And don't put a but in there.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah. But next time, do it sooner. Nope.
You just negated what you just said.
Yeah. Yep. That's a very good point. I have to add that into my list of behavior tips that I shared. Don't add this to the end.
and it's that so true even in apologies. I'm so sorry, but if you hadn't, well, then you're really.
Yeah. And that was something that Kevin and I learned we had to do in the Catholic Church where we got married. There's what they call premarital counseling, pre-Cana, I think. It's been so long ago, I can't remember. But that was one of the things that we learned in our time of that was when you apologize, make sure that you accept the responsibility for the behavior. I'm sorry you got upset. No, that's not an apology. That's not taking any responsibility at all. So understanding what you are apologizing for, you have to own it and mean it. I'm sorry I broke the cup. Not, I'm sorry you got upset when the cup got broken. There's very different, it's very similar words, but very different meaning in that. But negates, yep, absolutely. So there's so many different behaviors. It would be impossible to list them all because every person is going to exhibit their own behaviors. My biggest thing that I would say is to, like I said before, if it's something out of their normal routine, they probably have something else going on that they are trying to communicate. So try to validate whatever that is. Try to figure it out. Try to validate it. Stay calm. Be honest. Be patient with yourself too. Be patient with yourself too. You know, I've said it multiple times today. We all are imperfect, and we're not going to do all of these steps perfectly.
And I think in order to do all those things that you just said, one of the a big key is if it's a break, especially a long break from school or out of a routine, even, I think that's what we're really touching on is when we go out of from a routine to another routine or no routine, and then try to get back into a routine, is that you have to allow yourself moments to reboot, to refresh, to recharge. Because I saw something the other day, and it's so true. You cannot help, you cannot give, you cannot do from an empty battery.
Mm-hmm.
And so often of parents of kiddos who happen to have different abilities, there's no, we feel there's no time to recharge ourselves. There's no time, but you have to make that time in some form or fashion. You have to find that time, or you will not have the balance, the patience, and all the other things you said. You won't be able to do it because there's nothing to do it with what to do, you know.
Right.
So.
And Fran, you and I have said multiple times in these Fridays together that we get a lot of our strength, but we also get a lot of our patience, probably all of our patience, from seeking God and asking Him to help us. I really believe that I would not be the person that I am and be able to remain calm in so many of the situations that I've been in, be able to figure out the communication behind the behavior without the Lord's wisdom. Because I oftentimes, in the middle of situations with students, would ask, Lord, help me. Because I was out. I was empty. I didn't have what I needed at that moment. So having Him is also very important in my life, and I know that is the same for you as well.
Yeah. I'm going to this, and it for me, this is, sorry.
That's okay. Excuse me. That's okay. Still don't know what's going on.
Hey.
Yep, I can see it.
That is for, it's just for me.
Oops, I didn't mean to take that off so quickly.
just it's just I'm not doing it on my own, and I can't do it from an empty battery, and he's who for me who fills my battery most.
Mhm.
But
Absolutely.
and knowing that we just have to, it's okay to ask for help too. I want to, make sure people know it's okay to ask for help.
Yes.
We're not meant to do it alone. We are
Nope.
not meant to do life alone.
Yep. No, exactly. I mean, that if you're a Bible reader, that's in the first chapter of Genesis that, God created everything and then said man should not be alone. So, it's very important for us to have a team, a support group, whatever you want to call it. Even if it's just one person that you can reach out to and ask, say, hey, I need to talk this through.
And
It's, yeah.
and if you have no one that you feel close, there are so many places you can reach out to, either online. You can, if you don't like to talk, you can text. Maybe you could put them up, some of those links into underneath in the comments when we're done or something. But it's just heavy on my heart all of a sudden. Just this holiday season is so hard,
Mhm.
and we're so isolated already, and the holidays are hard, especially for those who have lost a loved one, to
Yeah.
go through a holiday. So it's so important to know you're not alone, and there are resources out there. So I just keep thinking, don't give up, don't give up. You're not alone, and reach out. It doesn't make you meek. It makes you strong.
Yeah, absolutely. Most definitely. And yeah, I mean, if you don't have anyone in person with you, um, please reach out to me. I will be happy to listen. But if I can't for whatever reason, I do have counselor friends. I do know of some hotline numbers that I will put into the chat section once this is over. I don't have them off the top of my head, but I will search those out. And Fran, if I don't do that, I'm going to hold you responsible for checking on me and making sure that that gets done, either by you or by myself. And again, it's time to wrap up. So, what's a final thought that you have, Fran?
It's okay to mess up,
Mm-hmm.
but the important thing, and here's my but, is to acknowledge that you're not perfect, but that together with your child, your loved one, whomever, you'll get through it and we'll work it out. And open communication.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who joined us. To Alex and for L.A. Jansen, thank you for being with us today. We appreciate you guys being here. Next week, Tuesday, if you normally would have joined me for #NoLimits, I will be replaying one of my first, actually, I think it is the first interview that I had with Zach Neighbors. I will be working the election. So I don't think they would be real happy with me if I just stopped in the middle to do a #NoLimits. So I'm just going to have the link for that broadcast from, I think it was March or April. And then next week, we don't know what we're talking about yet. But as always, we will come up with something, maybe a surprise to the other one, but we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
So if you're watching on the replay, if you have anything that you would like us to discuss, please leave that in the comments. And if anybody needs a virtual or in-person meeting IEP checklist, you can go to my website and I will post that in here as well. And there's a little form you can fill out and you'll get a checklist in your email box immediately. So thank you very much. Have a great weekend. It is time change weekend, so enjoy that extra hour of sleep. See you later, everybody.